with another live writing session. Yep, I'm tired. It's almost midnight here in Alabama, but we've got some stuff that we got to get done, people, okay? And it's not going to do itself. So we're just going to have to grind it out. So if you've been tuning in, I've been working on the Girlfriend Gala that's coming up October 23rd. Um, I am the chairwoman for this event. So I've been working on just kind of creating this unforgettable event. And so I figured, hey, um, what better way to carry on this live writing session and to just, work on this project at the same time. So that's what we're going to be doing this evening. What are you working on? Let me know in the chat. Let me see. Let me go ahead and put that in the chat for you. What are you working on? What are you creating? I am your accountability partner. You know what? And you're my accountability partner. So we're just creating this, kind of like a joint writing session. It's almost like we're all in the same office or something. Same virtual office. We're all in the same space. We're all creating. So let me know what you're working on. What are you creating? Let me know in the chat. And let me see. I'm gonna put on some music. Let's listen to some chill hop. It's a genre called chill hop. So let's see what this sounds like. And let's get to work, people. Okay. So I've been working on what I'm working on right now, but being honest, I'm multitasking. So I'm creating graphics. I'm also working on a script. I'm also working on kind of like a list of questions that we're going to ask when we do interviews. I mean, it's just like I'm working on a few different things at the same time. And it's not anything that really none of these projects require my undivided attention. So I can kind of spread out my attention across these different aspects of, I mean, it's all the same project, just different aspects of the project. So, it's really like I'm working on all the same stuff, but just different aspects of it all at one time. So that's what I'm doing. You're going to see that on the screen here. And so yeah, y'all just let me know what you're working on. I haven't decided if I want to listen to a little bit of some YouTube videos kind of in the background as I'm working. It's probably what we'll do. Trying to see what's in my algorithm, what's coming up in y'all's algorithm. What have y'all been watching lately? I've got a lot of political stuff because I've been kind of keeping my ear to the ground as far as what's going on politically, what's going on in the world. I also been watching a lot of content about just kind of like demeanor, posture, perspective, mindset, those types of things. Those kind of things have been coming up in my algorithm lately. So I've been listening to a little bit of that. Of course, all the Charlie Kirk stuff that's been going on, that's kind of been taking over social media right now. So I've just kind of been watching that. I hadn't really had an opinion on any of the stuff, not anything that I'm going to share, just, just stuff that I am observing. I did a live, probably like maybe a day or two after the assassination happened, just because I've been seeing a lot of stuff that's been going on in social media where people are really stressed out about it. People have been kind of crashing out, all that stuff, so, all I really said and all I really have to say about the situation is just, to stay silent right now and observe what is happening around you. More than likely your opinion, at least stating it publicly is not really going to move the needle as far as anything's concerned. Just probably more causing more problems for you than anything, So you got to kind of weigh that out. Is it really worth it to express those things, or is it better for me to just kind of keep my opinion and my stance to myself right now and just observe what's happening. Just taking a moment, step back. I'm just gonna let my discernment do its thing. I'm not gonna say anything one way or another, but trust and believe that I know what's going on. I'm observing. I'm making note of these things, as I need to, and I'm just gonna stay silent right now, about the whole situation. There's nothing wrong with that, There's a lot of gracefulness and dignity in that, and so that's kind of my stance on it. But y'all let me know how y'all feel about it. Let me know in the chat. Other than that, like just business stuff, I've been kind of watching a little. Well, I say watching, but I don't really watch it. I kind of just listen to it, as I'm doing other things. I'm kind of a serial multitasker, so I'm always doing multiple things at once. Have y'all been keeping up with the Cardi B stuff? She's pregnant again with a different guy. By a different guy. She's still legally married, so people have had some opinions about that, about having another child, and she just had her one recently. And y'all know it takes over a year for your body to really heal after having a baby, so that's a thing. But again, it's one of those things. I told you I don't really have an opinion on it right now, because it's just, my opinion is not really going to help the situation any at all. So there's really no need for me to share that right now. I got other things to worry about, other things. And you know what? You probably do too, child. So choose your battles wisely, sis. That's all I got to tell you. So let me see. I've been kind of having a little bit of ideas about how I want to do this, our vendor promo. I kind of want to do some type of framing of their logo or something. I don't know. I'm kind of confused as to the direction I want to go in with this particular part of the project. As y'all can see, I'm just playing with some ideas here. To spotlight our vendors, spotlight our sponsors somehow. So I'm trying to, and I probably actually shouldn't even be working on this part of the project right now, but like I said, I'm multitasking, so, and I keep putting stuff in and taking it out, like, nah, I don't like it. And then I take it out and just work on something else. Like, okay, let me take a break from that right now and work on something else. Like, that's just kind of like my pattern. And then on this sheet, I put like just a few different graphics I thought were cute that I might want to just save for later. I don't know what I'm doing right now. So I guess I'm going to move on from this part of the project and work on something else, since I'm probably doing more wasting time than anything by not really having a clear vision of what I'm trying to create and just playing with it. And there's some other things that are kind of more important and more pressing than the graphics right now. So this is my handy dandy comprehensive plan that I created just so I can keep myself straight, all the different aspects of this event. There's just so much involved, that I just try to keep things straight. And so periodically I go through and update this comp plan, so I can stay on top of things. Now, okay, now it's easy to throw something in a plan, in a comprehensive plan, and then forget to go back and look at it and stay on top of like your deadlines and stuff like that. So I'm trying to also make sure that, I'm not throwing all this good stuff into the comprehensive plan and then just forgetting about it, because that can totally happen, child. Totally happen. So let me go ahead and finalize these game details. Might as well go ahead and knock that out. Let me find us something to. Let's find some current events or something to listen to, child. I don't know. I'm just gonna be skipping through. Let's just skip through some videos. And child, if I don't find it interesting, I'm just gonna skip it, And we'll just see like what comes up in the algorithm.
Have you ever felt like your body is trying to tell you something, but you just can't figure out what it's saying? A persistent pain, a strange tension, an illness that comes out of nowhere and doesn't make any logical sense. Carl Jung believed that the body is the physical reflection of the psyche. In other words, every symptom, every discomfort, every strange ache is not just a random event. It's a deep message from your unconscious mind, a signal that something within you is calling out to be acknowledged. But here's the problem. Most people don't listen. They ignore the signs, cover them with medication, dismiss them as normal, or worst of all, get used to living with them as if that suffering was just part of being alive. They don't realize something fundamental. The body doesn't get sick by accident. It gets sick because something inside is out of balance. Something needs attention, healing, and release. Today, we're going to uncover this hidden language, the secret code your body uses to communicate with you. We'll explore how unresolved emotions, buried traumas, and blocked energy often show up as physical symptoms. And more importantly, I'm going to show you how to begin releasing that pain from its root. Stay until the end, because once you understand this, it might completely change the way you see your health, your body, and your inner world forever. Let's begin with the idea of the body as a mirror of the soul. Every part of your body holds symbolic meaning. There are no coincidences. The discomforts and pains that arise often do so during periods of emotional or psychological stress. Think about the last time you had a headache. Were you overwhelmed, under pressure, mentally exhausted? Headaches are frequently a manifestation of mental overload and anxiety. They're signals. Your mind is working at a pace your body can no longer handle. The connection between mind and body is profound. When we repress emotions, when we don't give them space to be felt and understood, they find another route to emerge. Jung once said, "What is not made conscious will manifest as fate." And in this context, what is not emotionally processed manifests physically. But instead of listening to these cries from within, many people just pop a pill and move on. They mask the symptom, ignore the root cause, and fall into the same loop over and over until the pain becomes chronic. The issue isn't just the pain itself, it's the habit of silencing the body's messages instead of tending to them. Healing isn't about living a life free from discomfort. It's about learning to understand the story behind each symptom. If a headache won't go away, maybe it's not your body needing medicine. It's your mind that's desperate for rest, for stillness, for peace. The solution isn't always external. Sometimes it's about creating space for inner quiet, questioning the expectations we place upon ourselves, releasing the invisible weight we've been carrying around. It's an invitation to pause, to breathe deeply, and to reconnect with what your body has been trying to tell you all along. Your intuition already knows this. The real question is, are you listening? Let's talk about the weight of unexpressed emotions. Your neck and shoulders do far more than carry the physical burdens of your day. They carry your emotional weight too. Carl Jung believed that what we repress doesn't disappear. It simply finds another form of expression. And often, that expression is through the body. How many times have you noticed your neck becoming tense when you feel stuck in life? When you feel powerless to change something important? Or when you're clinging to outdated beliefs that no longer serve you? Neck pain can be a clear signal from your inner self. You need more flexibility, not just in your muscles, but in your thoughts and in the way you approach life. You need to release control over things you cannot change and allow yourself to move with life instead of against it. And the shoulders? Their message is even more direct. Maybe you've become the strong one for everyone around you, the one who carries the weight, the one who holds everything together. But who carries you? Many of us grow up believing that asking for help is weakness. That strength means handling everything alone. But true strength is knowing when it's time to let go, when it's time to release the burden. Here's a simple practice. Next time you feel overwhelmed, close your eyes. Imagine placing that heavy load on the ground for just a moment. Take a deep breath. Feel your body without the weight. That single breath can remind you that life isn't just about enduring. It's also about resting, about allowing yourself to be supported. Now, let's move to your hands and arms, your connection to giving and receiving. These are the tools through which you interact with the world. You create, you embrace, you work, you express. But when you feel pain or tightness in your arms or hands, ask yourself, is there a balance in how you give and receive? Are you someone who finds it easier to give than to receive? So many people are. They offer love, care, and help without hesitation. But when it's their turn to accept those same things, they freeze. They feel guilt, discomfort. Pain in the arms may be your body's way of saying, you've been giving too much without allowing anything back in. And the hands, they symbolize your ability to hold on and let go. Is there something in your life you're gripping too tightly? A relationship, an identity, an expectation. Sometimes we hold on because the unknown scares us, but life flows. It's always in motion, and resisting that flow only creates tension, emotionally and physically. Here's a gentle exercise. Open your hands slowly, then close them. Do this a few times with intention. As you open, imagine you're releasing everything you no longer need. As you close, imagine you're receiving something new, something that serves your growth. Transformation begins when you trust that what's meant for you will arrive in its own time. Now, the chest, a sacred space. More than just a physical region, it is the sanctuary of your deepest emotions. Every breath you take holds a memory. Every heartbeat echoes with stories you may not even remember. When your chest hurts, feels tight, or oppressed, it's rarely just physical. It often signals a trapped emotion, a grief that hasn't been processed, a heartbreak that still lingers, a loss you haven't fully accepted. So many people walk through life with an invisible weight on their chest. They smile, they function, but deep inside, something is aching to be seen, to be felt, to be released. Your chest may be holding a silent cry, a longing, a memory you never got to express. And the more you try to suppress it, the more it shows up. In your breath, in your energy, in your ability to connect. Jung believed that healing comes through integration, not rejection, not avoidance. When you finally allow yourself to feel, truly feel, that ache in your heart, without judgment or resistance, you open the door to real healing. So take a moment now, place your hand over your chest, breathe in, ask yourself, what am I still holding here? What needs to be released? What memory still seeks closure? This isn't about fixing yourself. You're not broken. It's about remembering that your body is your greatest ally. Your body doesn't lie. It speaks when words fail. And every symptom is an invitation to return to yourself, to tend to what was forgotten, to begin again from within. Carl Jung often spoke about the importance of integrating our emotions rather than repressing them. According to him, whatever we refuse to face doesn't disappear. It transforms into a shadow that quietly follows us, shaping our behavior from the unconscious. Think about this. How many times have you felt a tight knot in your chest when recalling a memory that still hurts? How many emotions have you silenced just because you were afraid to feel them? That pressure in your chest might not just be physical. It could be a manifestation of feeling unheard, of having suppressed words that desperately needed to be spoken. Maybe you felt the weight of trying to live up to someone else's expectations. Maybe you've stayed in relationships that no longer nourish your spirit, simply because you were afraid to disappoint others. But here's the truth. The heart was never meant to carry unnecessary burdens. It was designed to beat freely, to guide us with clarity and intuition. If you're feeling a persistent heaviness in your chest, allow yourself a moment of deep introspection. Write down everything you've never dared to say, even if no one will ever read it. Cry if you need to. Let the tears flow, because crying isn't a sign of weakness. It's one of the most profound forms of emotional release. And when your heart releases what's been hurting it, your body responds with peace. The back, the pillar of our body, often reflects the emotional load we carry. It's no coincidence that when life becomes overwhelming, pain often settles in this area. The upper back, in particular, tends to accumulate tension when we take on responsibilities that aren't truly ours, when we become the emotional support system for everyone around us at the cost of our own well-being. Jung once said that the heaviest burden we carry is the person we think we're supposed to be. In other words, we exhaust ourselves trying to meet unrealistic standards. We put immense pressure on ourselves to not fail, to not let anyone down. But the body doesn't lie. If your back feels tight or sore, ask yourself, what am I carrying that no longer belongs to me? In the lower back, the emotional message shifts slightly. This region often holds our deepest fears, especially those related to financial security, stability, and the unknown future. It reflects our fear of not being in control, of not being enough, of the unpredictability that life throws at us. When tension arises here, it may be a silent alarm, telling you that you're carrying worries that are slowly draining your energy. One powerful exercise is to visualize that emotional burden as a backpack strapped to your back. Now imagine gently placing it on the ground. See yourself standing tall, without it. Take a deep breath and whisper to yourself, I don't have to carry everything. I trust life to support me. Relief doesn't always come from a stretch or a massage. It often comes from the conscious decision to let go of what is no longer serving us. Now consider your legs and feet. They represent your ability to move forward or to remain stuck. Our legs are what carry us through life, what propel us toward our goals. If you've been feeling heavy, tired, or achy in your legs, the message might be clear. Something is holding you back. Jung once said, what we resist persists. This isn't just a psychological truth, it's a truth written in the way we walk through the world. Perhaps you've been postponing an important decision. Maybe you're clinging to a relationship, a job, or a habit that no longer brings value to your life. Maybe fear of the unknown has frozen you in place, trapping you in a cycle of inaction. But remember, the body doesn't lie. If your legs feel heavier than usual, ask yourself, what's really keeping me from moving forward? Your feet, meanwhile, are your anchor. They ground you to the earth and provide stability. Persistent foot pain can be a sign that you're feeling uncertain about the path you're on. Maybe you feel like you don't belong where you are, that you're walking a road that isn't truly yours. Maybe it's time to shift direction, but you haven't yet taken the first step. In many spiritual traditions, the feet are considered sacred. They symbolize our connection to the present moment. If you're feeling discomfort there, your body may be calling you back to the now. It might be asking you to stop worrying so much about the future and instead start trusting the unfolding journey of life. A simple but powerful practice is to walk barefoot for a few minutes. Pay attention to each step. Feel the texture of the ground beneath your feet. Imagine roots growing from your soles, deep into the earth. This grounding exercise can not only help restore emotional balance, but also reinforce your sense of security and inner stability. Ask yourself, what do I need to release in order to move forward freely? Because sometimes the issue isn't a lack of opportunity, it's the fear of embracing it. Let me tell you a story. In a small village nestled in the hills, there lived an old healer. He was known for a rare gift. He could understand what the body of each person was trying to say. One day, a young man came to him, grimacing in pain. "I've tried everything," the young man said, clutching his back, "but nothing makes the pain go away." The old healer looked at him quietly for a long moment, then asked, "Who are you carrying on your back?" The question struck the young man like a bolt of lightning. Suddenly, in the silence that followed, he realized he'd been taking on responsibilities that weren't his to bear. He had been living his life trying to please others, burying his own dreams, denying his own needs. The healer handed him a piece of paper and said softly, "Write down everything you've been carrying. All the guilt, the weight, the things you haven't been able to let go of." The young man obeyed. He wrote down everything that had been burdening his heart and body. When he finished, the healer nodded and said, "Now burn it. Watch how it disappears into the air." And so he did. As the paper turned to ash, a strange lightness washed over him, not just in his back, but deep in his soul. That's the power of release. That's the wisdom the body holds, if we're willing to listen. The young man did exactly what he was told. And with time, something incredible began to happen. His back stopped hurting. Not because the fire had any kind of magical power, but because little by little, he had learned to release what had been silently destroying him from the inside. You see, pain is never just physical. Behind every ache, behind every persistent tension, there is often something deeper, a message, a whisper from within that we so often ignore. Every pain you feel has an origin more profound than you may realize. Your body is not just a machine that breaks down randomly. It is an intelligent, living system, constantly communicating with you. And sometimes, the discomfort is not asking for a pill. It's begging you to listen, to truly listen. Because healing doesn't always come from medicine. Sometimes, it comes from the courage to let go of what weighs us down, of what drains us emotionally, of what we're still holding on to, even when it hurts. Ask yourself, What burdens could you release today? What parts of your life feel heavy, suffocating, or stagnant? It's not enough to simply treat the symptom. If you don't process the emotion behind the pain, it will keep returning, like a shadow you can't outrun. Over and over again, the body will speak louder until you pay attention. As Carl Jung once said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. What he meant is that all the suppressed feelings, the denied truths, the repressed memories, they don't disappear. They become patterns. They become pain. They become your reality until you choose to face them. You can take all the treatments in the world. You can mask the pain with medication or distraction. But if you never stop to ask, what am I really feeling here? Then the true root of your suffering remains untouched. That's why the first real step toward healing isn't physical, it's emotional. It's asking yourself, what emotion is trapped in this part of my body? What have I not dared to feel? What have I buried so deeply that my body had to scream in order to get my attention? Take a moment now, pause, breathe deeply, close your eyes, and go inward. Ask yourself with complete honesty, what emotion have I been avoiding? What truth have I not been willing to face? Maybe it's grief, maybe it's anger, maybe it's fear, and maybe it's all of them, wrapped together in silence. Healing begins in that silent recognition, not with judgment, but with understanding. Today, I invite you to take just one small step toward your own healing. In the comments, write the phrase, I release myself. Don't just type it out of habit. Feel it. Say it with intention. Let it carry weight. Because this act, as simple as it seems, is not just about words. It is about declaring to yourself that you are ready to stop carrying what has been silently breaking you. It's a promise, a quiet commitment to yourself, to your future, to your freedom. And the next time you feel tension rising in your shoulders, or a dull ache in your chest, or a pressure in your back that just won't go away, don't just push it aside. Pause. Listen. Remember, every pain has a message. Every discomfort holds a truth. And every signal from your body is an opportunity to awaken, to transform, to heal. Don't get trapped in suffering. Don't numb the signals. Don't ignore the call. Your body is your ally. It is asking for your attention, not your resistance. So now I ask you, which part of your body has been speaking to you lately? What emotion do you believe is hiding behind that discomfort? Share it with me in the comments. You never know who else might need to hear your story. And if you've made it all the way to this part of the video, write the keyword, conscious healing, so I can send you a special greeting in the next one. If this message resonated with you, if you found even a moment of clarity, peace, or reflection, subscribe and turn on notifications. There's more to explore. And remember, healing is not a destination. It's a path, and you're already on it. See you in the next video.
There's a new tell-all documentary about Benjamin Netanyahu and the corruption in the Israeli government that you need to watch. But you probably haven't seen it because it was mysteriously pulled from all the major streaming platforms for reasons. They have some serious bombshells in there, like leaked police depositions from the Adelsons, testimony from Bibi's lifelong best friend, his campaign manager, and co-conspirators in a long list of alleged crimes. But most importantly, the documentary sheds light on how the Middle East got so messed up, how and why Bibi took Israel to war with Hamas, and why he has no intention of ending that conflict.
All right, y'all. What we gonna listen to next? I don't know. How are y'all doing? What y'all working on? Y'all all right? This part of the event, I am just working on our treasure hunt game and making sure that I include different aspects of it into the script. So I'm putting that in as I am putting in the information about the game itself. So like I said, I'm multitasking, so I'm going back and forth now between the game rules and all the specifics about the game and the script itself. So that's what I'm working on right now. Okay, let's keep going now. Apparently, there was this interview. Let's listen to this interview. I think this is going to be interesting.
The official story on 9/11 is a complete lie. The point was to leverage the pain and outrage of that day and use it to convince Americans that we have invaded Iraq. I'm not alleging that they committed 9/11, but I am.
I kind of really don't even want to listen to anymore like political stuff right now. Let's listen to this. This says something in you got stuck in childhood. This is a Carl Jung, and it says the childhood traumas that are controlling your life. Let's listen to this.
Have you ever wondered?
I'm gonna speed it up too. Let's speed up to like 1.5.
Silent cycle, as if something inside you sabotages your relationships, your decisions, your deepest feelings, even when everything seems to be going well. Carl Jung, the great Swiss psychiatrist and father of analytical psychology, believed that these hidden patterns have deep roots, more precisely, in his childhood. And perhaps the scariest thing about it all is realizing that these traumas are not visible on the surface. They hide silently in the folds of the unconscious and guide us without us realizing it. Imagine a child living his first years of life. She is sensitive, vulnerable, entirely open to the world. Every gesture, every word, every silence left by the adults around is interpreted by this child as an absolute truth. A look of rejection can become an emotional wound. Momentary abandonment can turn into a constant fear of not being loved. Jung stated that the inner child never disappears, it just shuts up, but it continues to live within us, influencing who we are and how we see the world. Many of our fears, insecurities, and destructive behaviors are actually unconscious attempts to protect this injured child. When we feel rejected and shut down emotionally, it can be an echo of a childhood where love was conditional. When we sabotage ourselves professionally, it may be a reflection of an internal voice that, way back when, learned that it wasn't good enough. Jung called these unconscious layers complexes and explained that childhood trauma does not need to be extreme to leave marks. It is enough to have been interpreted by the child's mind as abandonment, humiliation, rejection, or fear. Now stop for a moment. Take a deep breath and ask yourself, do you remember a moment in your childhood when you felt invisible, inappropriate, scared? Maybe that memory is buried, or maybe it still pops up every now and then, like a whisper in the back of your mind. The truth is that we don't need to remember everything clearly to be guided by these brands. The unconscious keeps every fragment, even what we consciously forget. What Jung proposed to the world was a new way of looking at pain, not as something to be fought or denied, but as an invitation to transformation. Trauma, according to him, is like a wound that, if ignored, becomes infected and contaminates other areas of life. But if welcomed, understood, and integrated, it becomes a strength. This process is called individuation, the path of return to the self, the essence of our being, free from inherited conditioning. And maybe you're wondering, but how do I start this process? How can I heal wounds that I'm not even sure are there? The answer lies in self-observation, in moments of emotional triggers, in exaggerated reactions, in repetitive patterns. Jung believed that the unconscious reveals itself through our automatic behaviors, our dreams, our physical and emotional symptoms. Observing is the first step to integration. Now I want to invite you to reflect. How many decisions in your adult life were made out of fear and not freedom? How many times have you said yes, meaning no, just to maintain someone's affection? Can you recognize these attitudes as unconscious attempts to protect a wounded part of yourself? Leave in the comments a situation that you now see with different eyes. Sharing this can not only free you, but also open space for others to recognize themselves in your story. Let's continue together on this deep dive journey, because understanding your traumas is the first step to regaining the power that you once needed to hide to survive. Childhood can seem distant, almost like a dream, clouded in memory. But what many don't realize is that she never goes away. What we experience during that period, especially in the first 7 years of life, it forms the basis of everything we believe we are, and even more so, everything we believe we deserve. Carl Jung said that the child's unconscious records not only events, but also unprocessed emotions, unexpressed fears and desires that have been suppressed. And all of this remains there, operating as a hidden system, controlling our reactions without us even realizing it. Have you ever stopped to think about why some people are so afraid of making mistakes? Or why do certain adults not tolerate criticism, even if it is constructive? Or why is it so difficult to trust, even in those who consistently show love? The answer may lie in childhood. A child who grew up being bullied all the time may have developed a critical, unforgiving inner voice. A child who only received attention when he was sick may unconsciously reproduce physical symptoms as a way of asking for love. These patterns, which Jung called complexes, become emotional cores charged with psychic energy. They form when a child goes through an intense experience, usually without having the emotional tools to understand or process it. Thus, this experience is repressed, pushed into the unconscious, but it doesn't disappear. It stays there, waiting for the right moment to emerge. And generally this moment appears in adult relationships, especially in the most intimate ones. How many times have you reacted disproportionately to something small? Have you ever had that feeling that you are being abandoned by someone just because they took too long to respond to a message? Have you ever exploded with anger because you felt rejected, even though you weren't sure that was happening? These are clear signs that something unresolved within you is taking control. And the scary thing is that often these reactions don't come from the adult you are today, but of the wounded child you once were. Jung said that until the unconscious becomes conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it destiny. This means that until you heal those childhood wounds, you'll continue to repeat the same patterns, experiencing the same conflicts, attracting the same types of relationships. Healing is not in avoiding pain, but in having the courage to look at it with compassion and presence. And here comes a crucial question. How can we identify these traumas if we often don't remember them consciously? The answer lies in the symptoms, emotional, mental, and even physical. Chronic anxiety, excessive insecurity, fear of abandonment, constant need for approval, difficulty in imposing limits, toxic relationships that are repeated. All of this can be a manifestation of deep-rooted emotional trauma. The body speaks what the mind is not allowed to say. Now reflect with me. Is there a recurring pain in your life that you try to resolve with rational effort, but which keeps coming back? Any pattern you swore never to repeat, but still find yourself stuck in? If so, that's no coincidence. It's your uncurated story asking to be looked at. And the more we ignore these calls, the more intense they become. Carl Jung shows us that the only way to break this cycle is to descend into the basements of the psyche and find the child we were, abandoned back there. Not to accuse her, not to judge her, but to finally welcome her. Because liberation does not happen when we deny pain, but rather when we offer it what no one gave us at the time, listening, security, and love. If this touched you in any way, share it in the comments. What behavior of yours did you already suspect could have roots in childhood? Do you feel like your inner child is asking for attention? Opening this exchange space is a powerful way to begin healing. Have you ever felt like there is a part of you that you try to hide from the world? A side that carries anger, envy, fear, shame, emotions that were repressed because we were taught they were ugly, wrong, or unacceptable. Carl Jung called this part of our unconscious shadow. And it is precisely in this dark territory of the psyche that childhood traumas take hold. Most strongly, the shadow is not evil in itself. It is the set of everything that has been banished from consciousness, but that continues to exist within us, wanting to be recognized. When we grew up in environments where expressing emotions was safe, we learned to hide what we felt. If when we showed sadness, we were ignored. We learned to smile even when everything hurt inside. If by expressing anger we were punished, we learned to swallow the scream and pretend that everything is fine. But repressed emotions don't disappear. They transform into symptoms, behavior patterns, and even psychosomatic illnesses. The wounded child that lives within us does not understand rationalizations. She doesn't know that her parents did the best they could. She only knows that at that moment she felt fear, abandonment, rejection, humiliation, and, based on these intense emotional experiences, he created deep beliefs. I'm not good enough. My feelings don't matter. Beloved, I need to please. I can't trust anyone. These beliefs become the lens through which we look at the world in adulthood. And what we do, without realizing it, is project this pain onto others. Jung said that what we deny in ourselves, we project onto others. If we do not accept our fragility, we condemn the fragility of others. If we don't accept our anger, it explodes in traffic, in arguments, in uncontrolled outbursts. If we deny our need for affection, we become cold or dependent. The shadow acts silently but extremely powerfully, and the more we try to appear perfect, the more it becomes stronger. Have you ever found yourself hating a trait in someone that deep down you also carry? Have you ever judged a person for something that, in a moment of honesty, you recognize that you also feel? This is the projection of the shadow, and it is an invitation to look inside, to stop blaming the outside world, and start understanding that the deepest answers are within us. Carl Jung stated that the healing process only begins when we have the courage to face the shadow head on, when we stop fighting it and start talking to it. This does not mean surrendering to what is darkest within us, but rather recognizing that each repressed part carries a message, a wound, a story. And until this story is heard, it will continue to repeat itself. And maybe you're wondering, but how can I recognize my shadow? How can I identify what I have repressed? The answer lies in the triggers. What bothers you most about others is usually a reflection of what you reject in yourself. The most intense judgments we make are valuable clues about what we are trying to hide. So the next time something or someone triggers a strong reaction in you, stop and ask, what is this trying to show me about myself? This is subtle, deep, and often uncomfortable work, but it's also the most transformative thing you can do. Jung said that the shadow only loses its power when it is brought into the light of consciousness. And that light begins to shine when we allow ourselves to feel, recognize, and finally embrace what we previously rejected. Now reflect with me. What emotion did you learn to hide as a child? What part of you did you have to bury to be accepted? Share in the comments if you feel like it. Sometimes putting it into words is the first step to freeing what has been trapped. For so many years, Carl Jung said that a healthy man is not one who has no wounds, but one who knows where they are and has learned to live with them. And perhaps this is one of the most important truths you can hear today. Because as long as you keep trying to be strong all the time, invulnerable, unattainable, you will continue moving away from the most authentic part of you. The child that still lives inside you. This child did not disappear. She is there, in your insecurities, in your interrupted dreams, in your hidden sensitivity, in your automatic reactions. It appears when you feel alone, when you are afraid of not being enough, when you need support and don't know how to ask for it. It appears in your love life, in your family conflicts, in fears that seem irrational. And she doesn't want you to ignore her. She wants you to come back for her. Many think that growing up means leaving the child behind, but Jung shows us the opposite. True maturation only happens when we recognize, care for, and reintegrate this injured child into our being. This is not going backwards. It is not becoming immature, fragile, or dependent. It is, in fact, the most courageous and essential move a human being can make. Look at your emotional origin and heal what has been denied. Reintegrating the inner child means recognizing that he had legitimate reasons to protect himself, to remain silent, to hide. It's listening to your pain, without minimizing it, without trying to correct it, without saying that it's over. Because for the unconscious, nothing happens. Psychological time is not linear like clock time. A childhood pain can be alive today as if it happened yesterday. And how do you reconnect with this child? Start with simple but powerful questions. What did I need to hear back then that I never heard? What was I deprived of and had to pretend everything was okay? What were my true feelings that no one validated? These questions don't have easy answers, and they may not even come immediately, but the simple act of asking opens a door. A symbolic, emotional, spiritual opening. And Jung said that all healing begins with a symbol, with an inner image, being received by consciousness. Sometimes when you close your eyes and imagine your child, you can see him sad, hidden, afraid. This is no illusion. It's your psyche trying to show you what has been waiting for years to be seen. What would happen if, instead of ignoring her, you reached out? If you said to her tenderly, I see you, I'm here now, you're not alone anymore. This is reconnection. This is integration. And this is so necessary because many of our unconscious choices in adult life are attempts to compensate for that child's pain. The relationship that nullifies us may be a repeat of the environment where we learned that love and control were the same thing. Excessive pursuit of success may be an effort to prove that we are worthy of attention, something we have not felt in the past. Self-sabotage can be a way of punishing a child who deep down still feels guilty for not being good enough to be loved. Have you ever wondered why you insist on certain behaviors, even though you know they are bad for you? Why do you keep going back to situations that have hurt you before? Perhaps the answer is not in the now, but in what was stuck in yesterday. And that child that still lives inside you is waiting for you to come back, not to rescue her like a hero, but to tell her that there is no longer any need to hide. That now there is an adult available, present, and aware to welcome her. If it touched something inside you, write in the comments, what was your biggest pain when you were a child? And what would you have wanted to hear back then? Your story can heal, inspire, and open paths for many others. And most importantly, it can open space for your own healing. Have you ever had physical reactions that seem to have no apparent cause? Anxiety that appears for no reason, a tightness in the chest, a pain in the stomach before certain situations, chronic insomnia or anxiety attacks seemingly out of nowhere. Carl Jung said that the unconscious expresses itself when consciousness is silent, and the body is often the way the soul finds to shout what has been silenced for years. The repressed pain of childhood may not be remembered clearly, but it is felt intensely in the body. Emotional trauma, especially childhood trauma, is not restricted to the psychological level. It manifests itself somatically. That is, it is stored in the body as a cellular memory. Recent studies in neuroscience and somatic psychology confirm what Jung had already intuited decades ago. When an emotion is repressed because it cannot be expressed, it crystallizes in us as tension, pain, energy blockage, and even illness. The child who could not cry, scream, or run away stored all of this in his muscles, organs, and nerves. Think about the number of times you swallowed your tears so as not to bother them. The times you needed to smile when all you wanted was to disappear. In the moments when you heard phrases like, "Swallow that crying, this is nothing, don't be weak," the body heard all this. And he remembered. Unexpressed emotions turn into symptoms, and often these symptoms are chronic, because what's hurting isn't just the physical, it's what's underneath. Jung said that the body is the mirror of the soul, and when the soul is hurt, the body carries this pain as best it can. Some people develop recurring back pain as a result of carrying the emotional weight of their family. Others have breathing problems because, symbolically, they feel they have no space to exist. Some are constantly sick because deep down, they only received affection when they were sick. The body repeats the same calls for help that the child tried to make and was not heard. And maybe you're wondering, but how can you differentiate a common physical problem from an emotional manifestation? The answer is in context. When you live in similar situations and always in them feel the same physical discomforts, it's a sign. When, after an emotional conflict, your body reacts, when certain words, places, or people generate physical symptoms, it is your unconscious manifesting itself through matter. But the good news is that the body can also be a path to healing. Techniques such as conscious breathing, meditation, yoga, bioenergetics, among others, help to access deep layers of the psyche that are not accessible only with the rational mind. The body is wise, and when you start listening to him with attention and respect, he starts to release what was stuck. Each tension released can be an emotion that finally has room to come out. Now reflect with me. What physical symptoms have you carried for years that doctors don't fully explain? Is there an emotion you feel that is stuck somewhere in your body? If you want, share in the comments. This is a safe space for listening, where many people can recognize themselves in their story, and, who knows, find a key to their own healing process there. Jung knew that there is no separation between body, mind, and spirit. Untreated emotional pain turns into physical weight. And the only way to break this cycle is look with courage at the roots of the pain, welcome the child who is still hurt, and finally, allow the body to release everything it has carried in silence for so long. From a very early age, we learn that to be accepted, we need to behave in a certain way. We discover as children that certain emotions bring us closer to others, while others push us away. We quickly understand that there are sides of us that are welcome and others that should be hidden. So without realizing it, we begin to build an adapted identity, what Jung called persona. The persona is the social mask we use to present ourselves to the world. It is necessary in many moments of life as it helps us function in society. But the problem happens when we completely identify with this mask and forget who we are behind it. And that's exactly what happens to most people who grew up with unresolved trauma. They build a persona based on survival, not authenticity. Think of a child who learned that he was only valued when he got good grades. She may grow up believing that she needs to be impeccable to deserve love. Your persona will be that of the perfection. Now imagine a child who was ridiculed for expressing feelings. She may become a cold, rational, distant adult. But this is just armor, an attempt to protect herself from the pain she once felt. On the outside, she looks strong. Inside, you're dying for connection. And what is most devastating about this process is that the persona, over time, crystallizes. We come to believe that we are this adapted version of ourselves. We don't realize that our life choices, our relationships, our careers, everything is being guided by this identity built to avoid pain. And so we spend years, sometimes decades, living a life that is not truly ours. Carl Jung said that in order to awaken, we must first recognize that the persona is not our true self. It's just a role we learn to play to survive emotionally. And when we carry childhood trauma, this role tends to be very rigid, defensive, and lonely. How many times have you found yourself pretending to be okay when inside you were in pieces? How many times have you laughed in situations where all you wanted to do was cry? How many times did you accept what you didn't want just to maintain the image of a good, educated, calm person? These are the persona's reflexes in action, and although useful in some contexts, it becomes a prison when we can no longer get out of it. Jung stated that individuation, the process of becoming who you really are, only begins when we have the courage to take off that mask. But to do this, we need to feel safe. We need environments, people, rituals, practices that allow us to show our truth without fear of being hurt again. And here comes the importance of deep self-knowledge. It's not enough to want to change. We need to understand what we are changing and why. Have you ever noticed any mask you created to adapt to the world? Have you ever felt like your external image doesn't match what you really feel inside? Share in the comments if you like. Sometimes naming our persona is the first step to letting it go. Because as Jung said, There is no awakening without confrontation with one's own darkness, and often that darkness is camouflaged in something that the world applauds, but that you know is not you. Taking off your mask may seem risky, but continuing to use something that no longer serves you is much more painful. The good news is that you no longer need to protect yourself like you did when you were a child. Now, there's a conscious adult in you, and he has the power to rewrite your story. If you look closely, you will notice that human relationships are the greatest laboratory of the soul. It is in contact with others that our wounds emerge more strongly, and this is no
Looks like we're back, y'all. Looks like we're back. Make sure you like the video as you come in or as you leave. Thank you so much. Are we back? Can y'all hear me?
Looks like we're back, y'all.
All right, good. All right, we're back, people. Let me see. Okay, now I'm about to move on to something else. Let me see what Jasmine Crockett's been talking about here lately.
It's time for mini meltdowns and on the
day that millions of people right around the world were mourning the death of Charlie Kirk as his memorial was being held in Arizona, CNN invites Democrat Jasmine Crockett on the air so she can continue trashing Charlie Kirk with barely any pushback from journalist Dana Bash. Here is Jasmine Crockett. She was, of course, one of 50 Democrats who voted against a resolution to honour the life of Charlie Kirk. And Jasmine Crockett didn't just defend her vote, she went a step further.
One of the things I do want to point out that's not been laid out that honestly hurts my heart is when I saw the no votes, there were only 2 Caucasians. For the most part, the only people that voted no were people of color, because the rhetoric that Charlie Kirk continuously put out there was rhetoric that specifically targeted people of color. And so it is unfortunate that even our colleagues could not see how harmful his rhetoric was, specifically to us.
Sorry guys, I forgot that Jasmine Crockett was the victim in all of this, and it didn't take Jasmine Crockett long at all until she just continued to unleash and lie about Charlie Kirk on the day of his funeral, claiming he was a racist and that he was the one inflicting harm on our communities.
So to me, just like we wanted to make sure that those Confederate relics were taken down, the idea of a new age relic being propped up was something that I just could not subscribe to. And it is unfortunate that more of my colleagues, even on my side of the aisle, could not see the amount of harm that this man was attempting to inflict upon our communities.
The father of 2 has just been murdered. What harm are you talking about? Again, not a lot of pushback from CNN. They just let her sit there and lie. But we will give credit, of course, where credit is due. And CNN's Dana Bash asked Jasmine Crockett about her language, such as comparing Republicans to Hitler.
I am using that.
Yeah, I can never listen to a video at regular speed. I just can't. It's just something about, I just can't do it. So we're going to speed this up. I listened to it at 1.5. I just want to get the highlights and then move on to the next thing. I don't just be wanting to just sit here and listen to it, slow. It feels slow when it's at regular speed.
When we see them trying to chill speech of jokesters, when we're seeing all of this, that is a playbook out of Hitler, and I won't deny it.
Joining us now is Sky News host James Morrow. James, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Great to be here, Charlotte.
Can I get your reaction to Jasmine Crockett? Tracking Charlie Kirk on the day of his memorial, and then CNN letting that interview go on for several minutes, and not a lot of pushback.
No pushback at all. And the thing is here is CNN deliberately counter-programmed the Charlie Kirk Memorial Service with Jasmine Crockett. So, this is a real conscious decision here. It's not just Jasmine Crockett that we're talking about here. This is CNN, and this is CNN trying to send a message about what, they believe in, and they think, oh, well, you shouldn't be watching Charlie Kirk at the memorial service, which, I found incredibly powerful. And I think a lot of people would have found incredibly powerful and just, fascinating from so many different perspectives to just have this kind of unhinged bile from Jasmine Crockett. That is basically kind of, it's a little bit racist with all the stuff she's talking about, white this, white that, and all that. It's the exact opposite of the message I think Charlie Kirk really was about, and particularly the speech or the eulogy given by his widow Erica, which is all about forgiveness and coming together. But the thing that in that speech she gave, in that eulogy she gave, the thing that really struck me was the line where she talked about not forgiveness, because we knew she was going to say that about forgiveness, because that's sort of very public Christianity and genuine public Christianity, not being cynical about it, of the Kirk family, has been such a part of their being in their essence. But the key thing here was really to me the line where she said, there's no riots, there's no violence, there's nothing like that that's happened in the wake of this death. And to me, that's what that all comes down to. This whole idea that when somebody big on the left gets killed or is elevated into the pantheon of the left gets killed, there's violence, there's riots, there's reaction, there's all sorts of things. When Charlie Kirk, who has prompted this outpouring from millions and millions and millions, tens of millions of people, around the United States and frankly around the world. I attended the Charlie Kirk Memorial in Hyde Park a week or so ago. They don't, there's no violence, there's no that hate, there's no that bile. And, so it's just really telling, I think, what she had to say there.
Oh, absolutely. And she was just full of lies. I listened to hours and hours of Charlie Kirk. He had no hate in his heart. He was all about, debate, engaging in debate, and doing it so brilliantly. He was absolutely not a racist. And then, of course, Jasmine Crockett can just get away with these lies on CNN on the day of his memorial. It's pretty disgusting. But James, just like you, I went to the memorial in Hyde Park in Sydney, and it was so peaceful, it was so healing, and it was so lovely to be surrounded by like-minded people who just had so much love for Charlie Kirk. And you mentioned Erica Kirk. How
amazing is she? She is so courageous. I couldn't believe at that speech she was able to give in front of tens of thousands in Arizona, but of course millions of people watching online, and finding the strength to forgive the man who killed her husband. She said, I forgive him because it's what Christ did. It is what Charlie would do. I mean, she is an incredible woman. But Donald Trump also gave a very powerful tribute. This was part of his speech.
Charlie's murder was not just an attack on one man or one movement. It was an attack on our entire nation. That was a horrible attack on the United States of America. It was an assault on our most sacred liberties and God-given rights. The gun was pointed at him, but the bullet was aimed at all of us.
I agree with that. You know, that attack on Charlie Kirk, it was just so evil. It felt like it was more than an attack on just one man. It felt like it was certainly an attack on America, attack on the West. And also, we heard so many brilliant speeches yesterday, but of course JD Vance, the Vice President, spoke about the revival we're also witnessing, and I really don't think he's overstating it there, because I think a lot of what Charlie said really went beyond politics, went much deeper than that. You know, what are your thoughts around that?
Well, I mean, look, it's fascinating, and I think what the president said there was absolutely right, and it comes down to something, Gab, that I think we may have talked about. I know I've spoken to a lot of people about this idea that the left thinks the right is evil, the right thinks the left is misguided, wrong, but not fundamentally bad people, and that's the fundamental difference here. And it was such an interesting sort of duality, because there was it was a very religion and metaphysics infused event, as you would expect. But it was fascinating to me too how also the president spoke about Charlie loving his enemies and opponents, and him saying, that he hated them. And it's really, I mean, I love that, because, you've got that sort of duality, right, in life, and this encapsulated everything, and like some people say, well, there's a contradiction there. And it's like, there isn't, because in a sense, it's Erica's job as the widow to forgive in that Christ-like fashion, but then for Trump, to bring it in sort of, biblical terms, Trump is Caesar, right? So it's for him to mete out justice, and these two things are not incompatible. I've heard some people suggest that they were incompatible. I disagree with that, but I also kind of feel, having watched all that, that from now on, whenever I've got a dilemma, it's not going to be the old cartoon angel devil on the shoulder. It's going to be like a little cartoon Eric Kirk and a little cartoon Donald Trump here saying, how do you deal with these people who are, coming at you,
Absolutely brilliant. I completely agree with you there, James. Now, we know that the Trump administration is, of course, cracking down on extreme radical left groups fueling political violence, and it's now official. Donald Trump has signed an executive order designating Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization. The president cited Antifa's pattern of political violence as designed to suppress lawful political activity and obstruct the rule of law. He cited that in making it the decision. So, James, talk to us about what's going to happen here. I mean, can we expect arrests of those who are potentially bankrolling them?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, eventually we'll get to the point where people who are funding and organizations that are funding this sort of street violence, because it is funded, because there are people who have, at these riots, organized for pallets of bricks and things like that to be arranged. We saw in Los Angeles recently, there were people who arranged for gas masks to be arranged so that rioters could go up against, Homeland Security, nice people with tear gas. So we know there's money, we know there's organization. To me, Gab, the really interesting parallel here actually goes back to the 1960s. Now, Lyndon Johnson was president back then. There was a horrific series of lynchings and bombings in the South perpetrated by people associated with the Klan, the Ku Klux Klan, against both Black Americans and white civil rights workers who had also gone down to the South. And LBJ instructed J. Edgar Hoover, who was the head of the FBI, to use the Civil Rights Act to go and prosecute and smash the Klan. And that's exactly what they did. Now, there's a similar parallel here, but I don't think you can use the Civil Rights Act here. Instead, what they should be using is the RICO Acts, which were the originally mafia targeting acts that are about racketeering, organized crime, and chasing down money and money laundering and money going to fund criminal enterprises, and use that, and I'm instructing Cash Patel to be using that in the same way that Hoover used the Civil Rights Act against the Klan in the 60s, to use that to go against Antifa here today in the 2020s.
Okay, and look, James, I have to ask you about this. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has been snubbed once again.
Oh.
He has missed out on securing an official meeting with Donald Trump during his time in New York for the UN General Assembly. I mean, what a joke this is. How embarrassing is this for Australia? It's interesting listening to the White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt kind of confirming that Trump will be holding bilateral meetings, of course, with Zelensky, with European Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen, with Javier Milei, leaders of Qatar, leaders of Saudi Arabia, Indonesia, Turkey, UAE, Jordan. Not our Prime Minister. And why would Donald Trump make the time? I mean, and it says so much about
he should make the time. I mean, he should make the time. He should make the time, because Australia is an important part of the American security architecture in the Pacific. There's real reasons why we really should be having leader-to-leader meetings. And it's really bad, and it's a great discredit to Albanese that we are not having those leader-to-leader talks. I think it's a really, dangerous situation. But for the Prime Minister and the President, in a weird sort of way, this is kind of good for both of them, because neither one of them, I think, really wanted this meeting. Not a plan. Albanese, the last thing he wants, it's not going to go well. He's going to look weak. He could get told off for any number of things, whether it's, having the safety commissioner or having, weak defense spending or whatever, so there's many ways to go wrong for him. And for Trump,
I'm not interested in none of this stuff. What are they talking about?
Say something bad about potentially, about an ally, so it's bad for him.
There is something you carry that others can sense the moment you enter a room. A rare aura that only true empaths possess. And Carl Jung's hidden research reveals why this invisible energy makes you both magnetic and vulnerable. Jung discovered that true empaths don't just feel emotions. They radiate what he called the wounded healer frequency, an energetic signature forged through pain, but transformed into something far more powerful. This aura isn't born from natural goodness. but from psychological alchemy that most people never achieve. In his private notes, Jung documented how this rare empathic aura operates on multiple dimensions simultaneously. It can heal others simply through presence, but it also attracts both light and shadow in ways that can either elevate or destroy the empath who carries it. The most shocking part, Jung realized that this aura becomes dangerous when empaths don't understand its true nature. Without conscious awareness, it becomes a beacon for energy vampires while slowly consuming the empath from within. Join me as we descend into Jung's most profound insights about the invisible energy field that surrounds true empaths, and why understanding this rare aura is the difference between being a wounded healer and a sovereign one. Because here's what Jung discovered that modern psychology still refuses to acknowledge. Your empathic aura isn't a gift you were born with. It's a psychological survival mechanism that transformed into something sacred through what I call traumatic alchemy. Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But for empaths, becoming who you truly are means first understanding why your nervous system developed this extraordinary sensitivity. It wasn't random. It was adaptive. Think about this from Jung's perspective on psychological development. He observed that empaths often emerged from childhood environments where emotional survival depended on hypervigilance. You learned to read micro-expressions before you could read words. You developed radar for emotional danger because your safety depended on anticipating the emotional weather around you. But here's what Jung realized that most therapists miss. This survival mechanism didn't just help you navigate childhood trauma, it literally rewired your brain to operate at frequencies that most people can't access. Your mirror neurons became hyperactive. Your limbic system became extraordinarily responsive. Your entire nervous system became what I call an emotional antenna. Modern neuroscience confirms what Jung intuited decades ago. Dr. Ella. Aaron's research on highly sensitive persons shows that empaths process sensory information more deeply in the brain regions associated with awareness, emotion, and empathy. But Jung understood something deeper. This neurological difference creates an actual energetic field that others can perceive. But that's not the most extraordinary part. The most extraordinary part is how Jung discovered that this empathic aura functions like what he called psychological radar. It doesn't just receive energy, it actively transmutes it through unconscious alchemical processes. Observed that when empaths enter a room, they unconsciously begin what I call energetic archaeology. They dig beneath surface presentations to uncover the emotional truth that others are hiding even from themselves. Your aura literally reads the shadow projections that people carry. Here's how this actually works. Based on Jung's understanding of the collective unconscious. Stage 1. The energetic scan. Your empathic aura automatically attunes to what Jung called feeling-toned complexes, the unconscious emotional patterns that drive people's behavior. You sense their unprocessed grief, their hidden rage, their suppressed fear before they've even acknowledged these emotions exist. Stage 2. The unconscious absorption. Because your psyche developed to be permeable for survival reasons, you begin absorbing these energies without conscious choice. Jung called this participation mystique, the unconscious identification with others' psychological states. Stage 3. The alchemical process. Here's where Jung's understanding becomes revolutionary. Your empathic nervous system doesn't just absorb emotional energy. It processes it through what he termed the transcendent function. You unconsciously transform others' raw emotional material into wisdom, insight, and healing potential. This is why people feel better after being around you, even when you haven't done anything specific. Your aura has literally processed their shadow material and reflected back a more integrated version of their emotional truth. But Jung warned about something crucial. This process only works consciously. When empaths remain unconscious of their alchemical nature, they become what I call emotional sponges instead of psychological alchemists. But here's where Jung's research becomes alarming. Your rare empathic aura creates what he called archetypal attraction patterns that draw both healers and vampires with magnetic force. Jung identified specific archetypes that are unconsciously drawn to empathic auras. The wounded child archetype. People carrying unhealed childhood trauma sense your capacity to witness and hold pain. They're drawn to you because your aura promises the unconditional acceptance they never received. The shadow projector. Individuals who've disowned parts of themselves unconsciously seek empaths to carry their rejected emotions. Your aura becomes a repository for what they refuse to feel. The energy vampire. Jung called these psychological parasites people whose own empathic development was stunted, so they've learned to survive by feeding on others' emotional energy. But Jung also identified positive archetypes drawn to empathic auras. The conscious seeker. Those doing their own inner work recognize your aura as a mirror for their own growth. They come not to take, but to resonate and co-evolve. The authentic self. People ready to embrace their full humanity are naturally drawn to the permission your aura gives them to feel deeply without shame. The danger lies in what I call archetypal confusion, when empaths can't distinguish between those who come to heal and those who come to feed. Your aura attracts both, but without conscious discernment, you'll drain yourself trying to transform people who aren't ready for transformation. If you've noticed that you attract both deeply spiritual people and deeply troubled people, comment, "I am an archetypal magnet." Now you're discovering what you called the wounded healer constellation, why your empathic aura carries both the capacity for profound healing and the vulnerability to being consumed. Jung understood that the wounded healer archetype operates through what I call resonant frequency healing. Your aura doesn't heal others by giving them your energy. It heals by resonating at frequencies that activate their own healing potential. Think about how this works energetically. When someone with unprocessed trauma encounters your empathic aura, they experience what Jung called constellation activation. Your presence awakens the healer archetype within them, because you're modeling that it's possible to transform wounds into wisdom. But Jung discovered something profound about this process. The wounded healer can only activate healing in others to the extent that they've done their own shadow work. If you're carrying unintegrated trauma, your aura becomes contaminated with what I call bleeding energy. Instead of inspiring healing, you unconsciously invite others to wound you in the same patterns you haven't healed. This is why empaths often attract narcissists, emotional vampires, and people who seem to need endless rescuing. Your unhealed wounds create an electromagnetic signature that draws people who will reenact your original trauma until you fully integrate those experiences. Jung wrote, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." For empaths, this means that everyone you attract is showing you something about your own unconscious patterns. The people who drain you are mirroring the ways you drain yourself. The people who can't receive your love are reflecting your own struggles with self-love. The alchemical solution, Jung's solution, was what he called conscious suffering. The willingness to feel your own wounds completely so they can transform into wisdom rather than remaining as open wounds that others can exploit. When you do this inner work, your aura shifts from what I call wounded healer frequency to sovereign healer frequency. You still carry the capacity for profound empathy, but it's now grounded in wholeness rather than woundedness. Here's where Jung's understanding becomes truly revolutionary. Your empathic aura functions as what he called the psychological mirror. It reflects back to others their own capacity for consciousness or unconsciousness. Jung observed that conscious people feel peaceful around empaths because your aura reflects their own inner light back to them. They experience what I call recognition resonance, the joy of being truly seen and accepted for who they authentically are. But unconscious people often feel disturbed around awakened empaths because your aura reflects their shadow material, the parts of themselves they're trying to avoid. This creates what Jung called shadow projection anxiety. They may attack you, try to dim your light, or attempt to make you responsible for their discomfort. This mirror effect explains why empaths often experience such extreme reactions from others. Some people are drawn to you like moths to flame, while others seem inexplicably hostile or threatened by your presence. The conscious mirror response. When someone doing their own inner work encounters your empathic aura, they feel inspired and elevated. They might say things like, "I feel so peaceful around you," or "You help me remember who I really am." These people energize you because the exchange is mutual. They're also reflecting your light back to you. The unconscious mirror response. When someone avoiding their shadow encounters your empathic aura, they feel triggered and defensive. They might criticize your sensitivity, tell you you're too much, or try to provoke emotional reactions that would lower your frequency to match theirs. These interactions drain you because they're trying to pull you into unconsciousness to avoid facing what your presence is showing them. The predatory mirror response. When energy vampires encounter your empathic aura, they sense opportunity. They recognize your capacity for emotional processing and unconsciously strategize ways to make you their emotional regulator. These are the people who trauma dump, create endless crises, or position themselves as victims who need your constant rescue. Understanding this mirror effect is crucial because it explains why boundary setting feels so difficult for empaths. When you set boundaries with unconscious people, you're not just protecting your energy, you're refusing to enable their avoidance of their own shadow work. But here's Jung's most profound insight about empathic auras. You're not just processing individual emotions. You're connected to what he called the collective unconscious, the shared psychic space that contains all of humanity's experiences, fears, and aspirations. Jung discovered that empaths serve as what I call collective antenna. You're unconsciously tuning into the emotional frequencies of entire groups, communities, even global consciousness patterns. This is why you might feel inexplicably sad during world tragedies, anxious during collective upheavals, or drained in crowded places where many people are carrying unprocessed emotions. Your empathic aura is literally picking up on archetypal energies that transcend individual psychology. You're sensing the collective shadow humanity's unhealed traumas, suppressed emotions, and disowned aspects of consciousness. This connection to the collective unconscious is both your greatest gift and your greatest challenge. On one hand, it gives you access to universal wisdom, archetypal guidance, and the ability to help heal collective wounds. On the other hand, it can overwhelm you with emotional content that isn't personally yours, but feels intensely real. Jung believed that empaths play a crucial role in collective healing because you can feel what others have numbed themselves to. You serve as early warning systems for collective shadow eruptions, wars, social upheavals, environmental crises. Your empathic aura senses these disturbances before they manifest in the physical world. But Jung also warned that empaths must learn to distinguish between personal and collective material, or they risk what he called psychic inflation, taking on responsibility for healing wounds that belong to all of humanity. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by world events or sensed collective emotions that weren't your own, comment, "I feel the world's pain." Here's Jung's framework for transforming your empathic aura from vulnerability into sovereignty, what I call the aura method. Based on his principles of individuation. Acknowledge your energetic nature. Jung emphasized that you cannot integrate what you don't recognize. Most empaths live unconsciously, unaware that they're operating with different neurological wiring and energetic sensitivity. Start by acknowledging that your empathy isn't just emotional, it's energetic. You literally absorb and process information through channels that most people don't access. This isn't weakness. It's a sophisticated form of consciousness that Jung called differentiated perception. Track your energy levels throughout the day. Notice which people, places, and activities energize you versus drain you. Jung called this energy accounting, becoming conscious of how your empathic gifts are being used and abused. You understand your archetypal patterns. Jung believed that everyone operates through archetypal patterns, but empaths are especially susceptible to what I call caretaker complexes, unconscious beliefs that your worth depends on healing others. Identify which wounded healer patterns you're carrying. Do you feel guilty when you're not helping someone? Do you attract people who need fixing? Do you feel responsible for others' emotions? These are signs that your empathic gifts are being driven by unconscious complexes rather than conscious choice. Jung's solution was what he called active imagination, consciously dialoguing with these archetypal patterns to understand their origins and transform their expression. Reclaim your energetic boundaries. Jung understood that healthy boundaries aren't walls. They're what I call conscious membranes that allow love in while keeping manipulation out. For empaths, boundary setting must happen at the energetic level, not just the behavioral level. This means learning to sense when your aura is being invaded or drained and having techniques to restore your energetic integrity. Jung practiced what he called psychological hygiene regular practices to cleanse absorbed energies and return to your authentic frequency. This might include meditation, time in nature, creative expression, or any activity that helps you remember who you are beneath all the emotions you've absorbed. Activate conscious empathy. Jung's ultimate goal was what he called conscious empathy, the ability to feel with others without losing yourself in them. This is empathy that serves consciousness rather than unconscious compulsions. Conscious empathy means choosing when and how to engage your empathic gifts rather than being at their mercy. It means being able to witness suffering without absorbing it, to offer healing presence without depleting yourself. This level of empathic mastery requires what Jung called the transcendent function, the ability to hold opposites in consciousness. You can be both compassionate and boundaried, both open and protected, both sensitive and strong. When you integrate Jung's principles, something extraordinary happens. Your empathic aura transforms from what I call wounded healer frequency to sovereign healer frequency. Jung observed this transformation in his most advanced patients. The sovereign empath carries all the sensitivity and perceptual gifts of the wounded healer, but these gifts now serve conscious choice rather than unconscious compulsion. The energetic shift. Your aura becomes more radiant, but also more contained. Instead of leaking energy indiscriminately, you radiate what Jung called integrated wholeness, an energetic signature that inspires others to do their own inner work, rather than depending on you to process their emotions. People still feel your empathic gifts, but now they experience what I call empowering resonance rather than enabling resonance. Your presence awakens their own capacity for healing, rather than creating dependence on your emotional labor. The attraction pattern changes. Jung noted that sovereign empaths attract a completely different archetypal constellation. Energy vampires and emotional parasites naturally fall away because your aura no longer broadcasts the available for draining frequency. Instead, you begin attracting what Jung called individuated souls, people who've done their own shadow work and can meet you at your level of consciousness. These relationships are mutually nourishing because both people are contributing to the energetic exchange rather than one person doing all the giving. The healing becomes effortless. Perhaps most remarkably, Jung observed that sovereign empaths often heal others simply through presence, without conscious effort or energy expenditure. Your integrated aura becomes what I call a healing field that naturally activates growth in others. This happens because you're no longer trying to heal from your wounds. You're healing from your wholeness. Your aura radiates the possibility of integration, showing others that it's possible to transform pain into wisdom, sensitivity into strength, wounds into gifts. Jung believed that empaths serve a crucial function in what he called the collective individuation process, humanity's evolution toward greater consciousness and integration. Your rare empathic aura isn't just a personal gift, it's a collective necessity. In a world where many people have become disconnected from their emotional truth, empaths serve as what I call consciousness bridges. You help others remember their capacity for authentic feeling. But Jung warned about what he called the savior complex, the unconscious belief that you're responsible for healing everyone. This complex actually impedes collective healing because it creates dependency rather than empowerment. The true collective healing mission of empaths is to model what Jung called conscious feeling, the ability to feel deeply while remaining grounded in your own center. When people witness this in your aura, it gives them permission to access their own emotional depth without losing themselves. The ripple effect. Jung observed that when one person in a family system or community achieves this level of empathic sovereignty, it creates what I call consciousness ripples that affect everyone in the system. Your integrated aura gives others permission to stop numbing their emotions and start processing them consciously. This is how collective healing actually happens. Not through one person taking on everyone's pain, but through conscious individuals modeling that it's possible to feel everything and remain whole. The evolutionary role. Jung believed that empaths represent an evolutionary development in human consciousness. Your ability to process emotions at such sophisticated levels is preparing humanity for what he called the next stage of psychological development. As more empaths learn to wield their gifts consciously, we move closer to what Jung envisioned as the conscious collective, a humanity that can feel deeply, process shadow material, and integrate wholeness on a species level. But here's Jung's ultimate insight about the rare empathic aura. It's not meant to be a burden you carry. It's meant to be a gift you consciously choose to share. Jung wrote, "Your vision becomes clear when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens." For empaths, this awakening means recognizing that your aura is a reflection of your inner wholeness, not your inner wounds. When you complete the journey from wounded healer to sovereign healer, your empathic gifts become what Jung called a blessing rather than a curse. You can feel deeply without drowning, love fully without losing yourself, heal others without depleting your own life force. This transformation requires what Jung considered the most courageous act possible, the willingness to be authentic in a world that often punishes authenticity. Your rare aura shines brightest when you stop hiding your gifts to make others comfortable and start embodying them as expressions of your truth. The sovereign empath doesn't tone down their sensitivity. They learn to radiate it consciously. They don't dim their light. They learn to shine it strategically. They don't apologize for their depth. They use it to create more depth in the world. If you're ready to transform your empathic wounds into sovereign wisdom, comment, "I choose conscious empathy." There is something you carry that others sense the instant you step into a room. An unmistakable presence. A rare aura that only true empaths possess. And Carl Jung's hidden research reveals why this invisible energy makes you both magnetic and vulnerable at the same time. Jung discovered that true empaths don't merely feel emotions. They radiate what he called the wounded healer frequency, an energetic signature forged through suffering, yet transformed into a power most people never touch. This aura is not born from simple goodness. It is the product of deep psychological alchemy, the kind few ever achieve. In his private notes, Jung described how this rare empathic aura operates across multiple dimensions. It can heal through presence alone, yet it also attracts light and shadow in ways that can either elevate or devastate the empath who carries it. And here is the shocking truth. Jung realized this aura becomes dangerous when empaths fail to understand its nature. Without awareness, it turns into a beacon for energy vampires while slowly consuming the empath from within. Join me as we descend into Jung's most profound insights about the invisible field that surrounds empaths, and why understanding it marks the difference between living as a wounded healer or rising as a sovereign one. Here's what Jung discovered that modern psychology still avoids. Your empathic aura is not a gift you were born with. It is a survival mechanism, forged under pressure, transfigured into something sacred through what I call traumatic alchemy. Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But for empaths, this means first understanding why your nervous system developed such extraordinary sensitivity. It wasn't chance. It was adaptation. From Jung's lens on psychological development, empaths often emerge from childhoods where emotional survival depends on hypervigilance. You learn to read micro-expressions before you could even read words. You developed radar for emotional storms because your safety depended on predicting them. But here's the insight most therapists miss. This mechanism did more than help you survive trauma. It rewired your entire brain to function at frequencies others cannot reach. Your mirror neurons became hyperactive. Your limbic system became exquisitely responsive. Your whole nervous system evolved into what I call an emotional antenna. Modern neuroscience now confirms what Jung intuited decades ago. Research on highly sensitive persons shows empaths process sensory input more deeply in the very brain regions tied to empathy and awareness. But Jung went further. He understood that this neurological difference creates an energetic field others can feel. Yet the most extraordinary discovery was that this aura functions as psychological radar. It doesn't merely receive energy, it transmutes it. When empaths enter a room, they unconsciously perform what I call energetic archaeology. They dig beneath the surface, uncovering truths even others hide from themselves. Your aura reads the shadow projections that people carry. Here's how this works. Stage 1. The energetic scan. Your aura automatically tunes into what Jung called feeling-toned complexes, the unconscious emotional patterns that drive behavior. You sense grief, rage, and fear before others even admit they exist. Stage 2. Unconscious absorption. Because your psyche developed as permeable for survival, you absorb these energies without choice. Jung called this participation mystique, the unconscious merging with another's state. Stage 3. The alchemical process. Here lies Jung's revolutionary insight. Your nervous system doesn't just absorb, it transforms. Through the transcendent function, you alchemize raw emotional energy into wisdom, insight, and healing potential. This is why people leave your presence lighter, calmer, more whole even when you've said nothing. Your aura has processed their shadow and reflected back something integrated. But Jung issued a warning. This process only works if you are conscious. Without awareness, empaths stop being alchemists and collapse into emotional sponges. Your rare aura also creates what Jung called archetypal attraction patterns, magnetic pulls that draw both healers and predators. He identified the wounded child, the shadow projector, and the energy vampire, but also the conscious seeker and the authentic self. The danger is what I call archetypal confusion. Without discernment, empaths cannot tell who comes to heal and who comes to feed. Your aura was forged in survival's fire, refined in every act of healing you've given, but it reaches its true radiance only when you heal yourself first. Jung understood. The wounded healer archetype is not the end of the empath's journey. It is the beginning. The completion is the sovereign healer, one who can hold the entire spectrum of human emotion while remaining centered in truth. Your aura is rare not because you are broken, but because you've transformed brokenness into beauty. Not because you are weak, but because you've developed the strength to carry the intensity of human experience. Not because you're meant to shoulder everyone's pain, but because you've learned how to alchemize it into wisdom. The world is in desperate need of empaths who understand their gifts as Jung did not, as burdens to endure, but as sacred powers to be consciously directed. When you embody your empathic nature with awareness, you become what Jung described as a living bridge between the conscious and unconscious. You help others access their own capacity for authentic feeling without losing your integrity. If you're ready to embrace your empathic aura as the gift it truly is, declare, "My sensitivity is my superpower." Your journey from wounded to sovereign healer is not just personal, it contributes to collective healing. Each empath who integrates their gift clears the path for countless others. Share this with someone who needs to know their empathy is a gift, not a curse. And if you want to go deeper, watch my video, Why a Fed-Up Empath is More Dangerous Than the Narcissist Ever Imagined, where I reveal what happens when empaths reclaim their power. This is only the beginning of the path toward empathic mastery. Remember, your sensitivity isn't too much. Your empathy isn't weakness. Your aura is not a burden. It is a bridge to consciousness. Thank you for watching. And don't forget, like, share, and subscribe to Psyche's Labyrinth, because the world needs the wisdom you carry.
And it's time for Lefties Losing It, and tonight's edition of Lefties will feature some of the ugliness, some of the utter depravity that has followed the murder of Charlie Kirk, a thoroughly decent, principled man brutally murdered today, and the soulless fools of the left were quick to celebrate.
There are a lot of people that are like, no matter what side of politics you're on, you should never celebrate something bad happening to someone. I, on the other hand, do cheer when bad things happen to bad people.
Charlie Kirk just got shot.
Lord of mercy. What did y'all think about these people that was just like so excited? Are you one of those that was so excited? Child. Y'all. I have some of the most random things that come across my algorithm. Like, I watch some of everything, you know? Oh, look, this one says the meaning of your birth month will change your entire life. Let's listen to that while we finish up here. I think I'm gonna start wrapping it up for this session. I think we've made some pretty good progress, so I'm pretty pleased with that. But let's listen to this.
Jung proposed that the month in which you were born carries more than just seasonal significance. It acts like a symbolic gateway, revealing essential clues about your psychological makeup, your inner potential, the emotional lessons you're here to learn, and even the kind of energy you naturally bring into the world. It's not fortune-telling or superstition, but a psychological lens through which we can gain more insight into ourselves. Let's imagine for a moment that understanding the symbolism of your birth month could unlock hidden parts of your personality, that it could offer you greater clarity on your habits, emotions, and even your purpose in life. Sounds dramatic, right? But once we begin to look at Jung's theories on archetypes, the collective unconscious, and the patterns of nature, this idea starts to make a lot more sense. In this exploration, we're going to dive into Carl Jung's symbolic interpretation of time, specifically how each month of the year holds a distinct psychological energy, and how that energy may subtly influence the personality traits, emotional tendencies, and even the spiritual direction of people born within it. But before we begin, if you're someone who values depth, meaning, and self-discovery, consider subscribing to our channel. We regularly bring content that challenges conventional thinking and invites you to reflect more deeply on who you are and what drives you. By joining us, you'll be part of a community that seeks growth, not through surface-level advice, but through profound inner understanding. Now take a deep breath, because what you're about to hear might not only change how you view your birth month, but also how you see your story, your patterns, and the journey you've been walking all along. It's not about putting people into boxes. It's about revealing the patterns already woven into the fabric of your being. Let's start with Carl Jung's central belief that the universe is full of repeating patterns, what he called archetypes. These are universal images, stories, and energies that appear across all cultures, myths, and human experiences. They exist both outside and inside us. And Jung believed that we each carry a unique combination of these archetypes within us, shaping how we think, feel, and act. What's more, he believed that nature's cycles, like the seasons, also mirror these archetypes. The cold stillness of winter, the blossoming energy of spring, the full radiance of summer, and the reflective quiet of autumn. Each season corresponds to a different psychological energy. And because each month belongs to a specific part of the year, it too carries symbolic weight. According to Jung, the month of your birth isn't merely a line on a calendar, it's a symbolic imprint. It's the moment in time when you entered the world, and that moment is rich with meaning. The environment, the energy of the season, the light or darkness, the sense of beginning or ending, all of this shapes the emotional and symbolic atmosphere into which you were born. Think about March, for example, a month of transition. It's the northern hemisphere. It marks the shift from winter to spring. The snow melts, the days get longer, and life begins to stir again. For Jung, someone born in a transitional month, like March or September, when summer gives way to fall, may carry within them a dual nature. They might feel pulled between two worlds, between stillness and motion, introspection and expression. These individuals often have a heightened sensitivity to change. They're attuned to shifts in their environment and emotions, and they tend to seek harmony between opposites. Now compare that to someone born in a month like January or July. These are periods of stability when a season has fully set in. People born during these months often embody the energy of structure and consistency. Jung associated them with archetypes of perseverance, inner strength, and long-term vision. They're the builders, the organizers, the ones who naturally seek to create order and solid ground. There's a psychological resilience in them, a capacity to endure and to help others do the same. What Jung found fascinating is that time itself is not neutral. It has a rhythm, a mood, and a story. And when we're born at a specific point in this unfolding story, we absorb a certain symbolic tone, like a background melody that subtly influences our thoughts, behaviors, and emotional responses. It doesn't determine your destiny, but it provides a map, a symbolic framework that you can use to understand yourself better. This symbolic map doesn't tell you what you must. Rather, it reveals the energies you're likely to encounter within yourself, both the strengths you can rely on and the shadows you're meant to confront. For Jung, self-knowledge is the key to freedom. And part of that self-knowledge comes from understanding the archetypal forces you were born into. The fascinating part of this idea is that it takes something we usually overlook, like the month we were born, and turns it into a powerful tool for introspection. Suddenly, the date on your birth certificate isn't just a fact, it's a doorway, a way to connect with the deeper rhythms of nature, psychology, and the soul. So now we arrive at the real question. What does your birth month say about your soul's journey? Each month, according to Jung's symbolic thinking, connects to a particular archetype, a timeless inner pattern that lives within all of us but is more dominant in some people than others. Understanding these patterns can reveal why you're drawn to certain roles in life, why some challenges repeat, and where your natural wisdom lies. In the sections ahead, we'll explore the meaning behind each month of the year, from the silent depth of January to the mysterious transformation of November. You'll see how Jung's understanding of archetypes allows us to find significance in the rhythms of time itself. We'll begin by walking through the symbolism of the early months of the year, and you might find reflections of yourself in places you never expected. But keep in mind, this isn't about fitting into a mold. The archetypes Jung described are not boxes, they're mirrors. They don't limit you, they help you recognize what's already inside you but maybe hasn't yet been named. So if you're ready to discover the symbolic energy behind your month of birth, and how it may be quietly influencing your choices, your emotions, and your personal growth, then continue with us on this journey. In the next part, we'll begin exploring month by month, diving into the specific archetypes that Jung associated with each time of year, starting with January, February, and March, and continuing all the way to December. What you find might not only surprise you, but reconnect you to a part of yourself you've long forgotten. Now that we've explored Carl Jung's idea that your birth month holds symbolic meaning, serving as a reflection of the archetypal forces that shape your inner life, it's time to look at each month individually. Jung didn't see these months as arbitrary divisions of time, but as symbolic phases in the grand cycle of nature. Each carries its own psychological tone, and those born within each month may find themselves naturally resonating with certain universal patterns or archetypes. Let's begin this symbolic journey through the calendar and uncover what each month might reveal about the inner landscape of your soul. January, the archetype of the elder or the sage. January begins with silence. In many parts of the world, it is the coldest, quietest time of year, a season of stillness, reflection, and introspection. It represents not only a new beginning, but also a pause to contemplate the year that came before. Jung associated January with the archetype of the elder or the sage. People born in January often carry a sense of depth, maturity, and responsibility, even from a young age. They may not always be the most outspoken, but when they speak, others listen. There's a natural wisdom about them, an ability to reflect on life from a broader perspective. They tend to value long-term goals, inner stability, and practical wisdom. Though they may seem reserved, they are often quietly determined and incredibly grounded. But like all archetypes, this one has its shadow. The sage can become overly cautious, overly serious, or detached. January-born individuals may struggle to stay connected to joy or spontaneity if they carry too much of this serious energy. The key is to embrace their wisdom while remembering to allow space for lightness. February, the archetype of the visionary or the revolutionary. February still holds the chill of winter, but something begins to shift. There is an undercurrent of change, of potential, of what could be. For Jung, this month resonates with the archetype of the visionary, the one who sees beyond the present into what is possible. Those born in February often possess a strong imagination, a love of innovation, and a drive to break away from the status quo. They tend to be independent thinkers who don't like being confined by traditional structures. There's something slightly rebellious in their nature, not for the sake of rebellion itself, but because they see a different way forward. Many of them are deeply creative and emotionally sensitive, even if they don't always show it. However, the visionary can sometimes feel isolated or misunderstood. They live in the realm of ideas and ideals, which can make day-to-day reality feel limiting or frustrating. The challenge for those born in February is to find ways to ground their insights and bring their visions into the real world. March, the archetype of the reborn or the awakener. March marks a powerful turning point. In the Northern Hemisphere, it signals the beginning of spring, life awakening again after the cold sleep of winter. In Jung's symbolic view, March belongs to the archetype of the reborn, the one who emerges from darkness into light, from dormancy into growth. people born in March often have a deep emotional sensitivity. They feel things intensely and may have a strong intuitive sense of the world around them. There is often a spiritual or artistic quality to them, a connection with nature, cycles, and emotional renewal. These are the people who can reinvent themselves many times over in life. They are resilient, even if they appear delicate. The danger for the reborn is in becoming overwhelmed by their own emotional depth or losing themselves in their inner world. March-born individuals may need to be mindful of boundaries and balance their rich inner life with a grounded outer presence. April, the archetype of the warrior or the initiator. April bursts onto the scene with energy and movement. The days grow longer, life accelerates, and everything seems to be in motion. This month carries the fiery, active energy of the warrior or the initiator, the archetype of courage, action, and personal will. Those born in April often have a bold, assertive nature. They're natural starters, always ready to dive into something new. There's a passionate intensity about them, and they tend to lead even when they're not trying to. They don't hesitate to fight for what they believe in, and they bring a contagious energy to the people around them. However, the warrior archetype can become impulsive or aggressive if not balanced with awareness. April-born individuals might struggle with patience or have a tendency to burn out from pushing too hard. Their growth lies in learning when to act and when to pause. May, the archetype of the builder or the lover of simplicity. May is a time of beauty, blossoming, and stability. Nature is in full bloom, and there's a calm strength in the air. Jung would associate May with the archetype of the builder, the one who values creation, patience, and the pleasures of life. People born in May often have a grounded, sensual nature. They find comfort in routine, appreciate beauty, and are deeply connected to the physical world. They may be drawn to art, nature, food, and all things that engage the senses. There's a nurturing and loyal quality to them, and they tend to be steady in their pursuits. The challenge for May-born individuals is to avoid becoming too rigid or too attached to comfort. The builder can resist change out of fear of losing stability. Their evolution comes through learning how to embrace growth without sacrificing their deep connection to what's real and lasting. June, the archetype of the seeker or the mediator. June sits at the midpoint of the year, balancing the first half with what's yet to come. It is a time of brightness, curiosity, and movement. According to Jung's symbolic view, June resonates with the archetype of the seeker, the one who yearns for understanding, connection, and truth. Those born in June often have quick minds and open hearts. They're inquisitive, adaptable, and socially gifted. There's often a playful, youthful energy about them, mixed with a deep need to explore life's bigger questions. They make excellent communicators and tend to have a strong desire to connect ideas, people, and experiences. The seeker's challenge is focus. With so many interests and ideas, they may struggle to stick with one path or one decision. They can also become overwhelmed by overthinking or trying to please everyone. Their growth lies in learning to center themselves while still exploring the world. As we can see, each month carries its own symbolic tone, its own invitation to explore a particular part of the psyche. And for Jung, these aren't stereotypes. They are symbolic mirrors that help us reflect on who we are at our core. In the next part, we'll explore the meanings behind the months from July to December, months filled with emotion, transformation, leadership, and inner wisdom. And perhaps in one of them, you'll begin to recognize your own inner calling more clearly than ever before. As we continue our symbolic journey through the months of the year, we now turn to the second half, from July to December. These months carry deeper, often more complex energies. Jung believed that that the latter part of the year reflected processes of maturation, emotional depth, and a stronger call to transformation and meaning. Let's explore what each of these months reveals about the archetypes you may carry if you were born within them, and how this insight can help guide you toward greater self-understanding. July, the archetype of the protector or the nurturer. July arrives with warmth, family gatherings, and emotional richness. It's a month deeply connected to care, connection, and inner life. Jung would associate July with the archetype of the nurturer or the protector, those who are instinctively attuned to the emotional needs of others. People born in July often have strong emotional intelligence. They may be deeply empathetic, compassionate, and fiercely loyal to those they love. There is usually a strong connection to family, roots, memory, and tradition. These individuals often become the emotional center of their communities, offering safety and comfort to those around them. However, the shadow of the nurturer can be self-neglect. July-born people may give so much to others that they forget to care for themselves. They may suppress their own feelings in order to keep the peace. Their growth lies in learning to protect themselves as much as they protect others. August, the archetype of the leader or the sovereign. August carries a bold and radiant energy. It's a time of full expression, of confidence, vitality, and visibility. For Jung, this month reflects the archetype of the king or queen, also known as the sovereign. Those born in August often have a commanding presence. They possess natural leadership qualities, a strong sense of identity, and a deep desire to make an impact. While they may enjoy attention, it's usually because they feel called to lead, to serve, or to guide others towards something greater. Yet, leadership comes with its own challenges. The sovereign can fall into pride, control, or even isolation if they feel misunderstood or unsupported. August-born individuals grow by learning humility, compassion, and the importance of shared power. When in balance, they become true visionaries, empowering others while walking with strength and grace. September, the archetype of the analyst or the perfectionist. September brings with it the shift toward autumn in the Northern Hemisphere. It's a time of harvest, organization, and preparation. Jung connected this period with the archetype of the analyst, the one who seeks to understand the world through logic, order, and clarity. Those born in September often have sharp minds and a natural ability to bring structure out of chaos. They're detail-oriented, disciplined, and drawn to tasks that require focus and precision. They may be planners, organizers, researchers, people who feel most at peace when everything is in its place. But the analyst's strength can become a burden when it leans into perfectionism. September-born individuals may be overly self-critical or rigid. They may fear mistakes and struggle to accept uncertainty. Their path of growth lies in learning to embrace imperfection as part of the human experience and to allow room for spontaneity, creativity, and self-compassion. October, the archetype of the diplomat or the artist. October is a time of beauty, balance, and changing colors. The energy of this month is one of harmony, aesthetics, and emotional connection. Jung saw October as embodying the archetype of the diplomat or the artist, those who seek peace, beauty, and unity in the midst of life's dualities. People born in October are often gifted in relationships. They have a natural sense of fairness, an eye for beauty, and a deep desire to bring people together, whether through art, conversation, or simply their presence. They build bridges where others see walls. Many October-born individuals are romantics, at heart, valuing love, truth, and deep emotional connection. The shadow side of this archetype is the fear of conflict. Diplomats may avoid confrontation to preserve peace, even when it comes at a personal cost. Their growth involves learning to stand firmly in their truth, knowing that true harmony isn't about avoiding conflict, but resolving it consciously. November, the archetype of the alchemist or the deep transformer. November is a month wrapped in mystery. The light fades, the world grows quieter, and we begin turning inward. For Jung, this is a deeply symbolic time, a month governed by the archetype of the alchemist or the transformer. Those born in November are often intense, intuitive, and spiritually oriented. They carry within them a desire to go beyond appearances and uncover what lies beneath. These are individuals who aren't afraid to face the darkness, whether in themselves or others. They are seekers of truth, often undergoing profound personal transformations throughout their lives. The alchemist's journey is not easy. It involves pain, surrender, and rebirth. November-born people may go through cycles of loss and renewal, constantly evolving. Their challenge is to trust the process and not become overwhelmed by it. When they embrace their depth without fear, they become powerful healers and guides for others. December, the archetype of the wise teacher or the visionary sage. December marks the close of the year, a time of endings, reflection, and hope for new beginnings. Jung saw this month as aligning with the archetype of the wise teacher or the visionary sage. People born in December often carry a blend of maturity and optimism. They reflect on the past with wisdom while looking toward the future with faith. These individuals tend to have a broad view of life and are often philosophical, spiritual, or idealistic in nature. They may feel drawn to share their insights with others, to guide, to inspire, or to expand consciousness. But even the sage faces challenges. They may become disconnected from the present, overly focused on abstract ideas, or disillusioned when life doesn't match their ideals. Their path to growth involves anchoring their wisdom in everyday life, using it not just to think or teach, but to live meaningfully. As we've seen, each birth month, through Jung's symbolic lens, reflects a different facet of human experience. From the stillness of January to the expansive vision of December, the calendar becomes more than a tool for measuring time. It becomes a symbolic map for understanding your inner world. Jung never intended these archetypes to define or limit anyone. Rather, he saw them as keys, starting points for a deeper dialogue with the soul. The archetype associated with your birth month may highlight your natural strengths, emotional tendencies, and the life themes you're here to explore. But it's up to you to work with these symbols consciously. Real transformation doesn't come just from knowing your archetype. It comes from integrating it into how you live, how you choose, and how you grow. Jung called this the process of individuation, becoming the most whole, authentic version of yourself. That journey is unique for every person. And the more you learn to recognize the symbolic forces at play in your life, the more freedom you have to shape your destiny with awareness and meaning. Your birth month doesn't define you, but it can reveal something essential about the path your soul is walking. And now that you've glimpsed this map, perhaps you'll see yourself and your story with new eyes.
That was kind of interesting, right, you guys? I mean, it's kind of weird, but like I don't really know if there's really too much stock in the whole birth month thing, you know. I think maybe there is a little symbolism there. Maybe there is a little meaning there, but I mean, how much though, really? You know, like how much can you really, you know what I'm saying? Like how much stock can you really put into it? You know, I wouldn't put too much into it, but you know, some people are really into that whole like birth month, zodiac, all that stuff. I'm not really into it, but you know, I do think that there are probably some really good points, you know, that can be could be highlighted, it's probably some good points in there, but I don't know, y'all. It sounds like it's a bit of a stretch. You know what I'm saying? Like I just don't know if there's really any type of validity in it, That's all I'm saying. But some people really do believe in it, so I don't know. I did at one point talk to some okay, I'm gonna admit it. I did talk to somebody one time who was a a tarot card reader and stuff like that. It wasn't even one time, maybe 3 times total in my whole life. Hey, I'm actually this is a live writing stream. And I'm just sharing with you guys what I'm working on, which is a project in my local community for a community service organization I'm a part of called Altrusa International. And, as it says, it is international. So you could be a part of it too if you wanted to, Miss Mary D. Plays. But that's what I'm working on right now. I'm just kind of giving you guys a view of my process of working on it. No, it's kind of like a I say dual purpose, but it may be more purposes than just two. For us to have a good writing session, that's one. I'm a writer, and so I want to bring you in on my process of writing, no matter what I'm writing, so it could be this whole event that I'm coordinating, which as you can see involves a lot of writing, right? Everything involves writing. But so it could be that, or it could be me working on my books. It just varies what I'm working on. But right now, this is a project that we have that's we're 30 days away now. We're at our 30-day countdown now. So when you're at this juncture of planning a event, there's a lot of little details that you have to pay attention to and make sure things don't slip through the cracks. So right now, I am just working on some graphics, also simultaneously working on our comprehensive plan. This is our huge comprehensive event plan, just of every detail, so that we make sure that we don't forget anything, or nothing just slips through the cracks. It's even with the most meticulous detail, sometimes things just still creep up on you, and I just want to mitigate that and minimize that as much as possible. So I put together this comprehensive plan, being the chairwoman of this event, and so I'm just bringing you guys in on my process. You don't really get to see this all the time, right? You don't get to see people actually working on planning an event, all the behind the scenes and all the coordination that's involved in it. So this is me and the girls. This is the executive committee here of my local Altrusa club. So as you can see, that's me right there in the green as vice president. And then there's the other ladies who also have various leadership roles. Of course, there are more of us than that, but we're the ones that are in leadership right now. So this is what I've been working on. And I guess, I'm at a good point to call it a night. We've been working for about 2 hours, which is a really good writing session to have. Let me know in the chat what you've been working on. Have you, what are you working on? A book? You working on a different project? Do you have an event coming up? Is this helping you to plan your event? Have you realized that, hey, there is a lot involved in planning events. So, watching her is really kind of helping me to figure out the things that I need to do to plan my event. And, you know what they say, right? Proper planning. Proper planning prevents piss poor performance, people. Okay. So that's what we're doing. We're doing some proper planning over here so that, we don't have a piss poor event come gala night. So, all right, you guys, this is good. This is a good stopping place for us. Thank you all for tuning in as usual to our live writing sessions. I pray that these are benefiting you, that, even if you're watching them, after the fact, that you go ahead and just like go through the video, the whole thing, and just use it as, your writing session, just to hold you accountable and to just keep moving forward in what you are creating. Okay. I love y'all. And remember, you are important to me. I need you to survive. Bye-bye for now.